Extraction seems to be a real stylistic choice.
Definitely a stylistic point, especially if you're looking at wanting to get as much out of the skins color-wise, tannin-wise. That's where you look at going in a slightly higher level of extraction.
Okay.
If you want to make a more elegant, more refined type of wine, you probably want to be in the middle of the extraction goal without going too aggressive with punch downs or submerged cap or even target temperature, which we're going to get to next.
So in terms of your target fermentation temperature, seems like with Cabernet Sauvignon, you're either going to go a medium temperature or a high temperature.
Yeah, because a lot of our clients, if not all of them, want to have good color, want to have good tannin. A lot of them are not that interested in a fruity, almost bright, aromatic type of wine. Okay. They want a little bit more weight aromatically, as well as deeper color. If you ferment your temperature, if your temperature range in your fermentation is in the low 80s, high 70s, you do end up with a very vibrant, very kind of pretty wine, almost tutti frutti, without really a lot of dense color and weight. Whereas if you go quite hot in your temperature, where you're pushing 93, 94 degrees Fahrenheit, you end up with very, very good color extraction, but maybe give up a little bit on the aromatic front because you do blow off quite a bit of it because of the heat. You do need to be careful when it comes to your target temperature, because if you go too high, you do end up harming the yeast because they do have a tolerance level when it comes to actual temperature during fermentation.
The next piece on the wine plan is extended maceration.
Yeah, so the extended maceration part of the wine plan is very much related to the relationship between the client and the winemaker, because there needs to be communication at this point. Because again, it is related to the style of wine you want to make, as well as where you want your tannin profile in your wine to be. A lot of times, during fermentation, as we're approaching the end of it, get to about 5 degrees Brix, all of our clients get that email that gets sent to them saying, your wine is getting ready for drain and press. That's where you get in communications with the winemaker, and you talk about the mouthfeel, the flavor profile, the tannin intensity of the wine. The tannins are very chalky, very harsh. My recommendation is to go through some extended maceration, because these harsh tannins tend to polymerize and to actually become more velvety. They do become firm, but they don't stay in that aggressive, chalky state by actually drain and pressing them too soon.
Okay.
If you find that you have the right amount of tannin, where you're very happy with their softness and their texture, you have the choice of drain and pressing at dryness, or maybe even a little bit earlier, and letting the wine actually finish in the barrel. But again, extended maceration really is a relation between the winemakers here at Crushpad and the clients as to how they want their tannin impression to be in the wine. And then that kind of really leads right into pressing, because I mentioned that, if you're not really interested in doing any extended maceration with your Cabernet, then it's a good idea to drain and press right at dryness when we get down to 0 Brix, or drain and press a little bit sweet, let your fermentation finish in the barrel, and many of our clients actually go right into a brand new French oak barrel or American oak, and you can actually get this kinetics of fermentation, extract some of the toastiness of the wood a little bit more, get better integration of the oak happening that way. So when we do drain and press, we actually take the free run, move it into the barrel, then we're left with the skins that have a lot of wine in them. We throw the skins into a press and start squeezing at various press fractions. The first few press fractions are called light press. Later, higher press fractions are called heavy press. It's very important. In fact, it's one of the most important points of a client's visit here at Crushpad is to coincide with drain and press, because you can actually taste your wine for the first time, as well as take part in tasting the different press fractions and making the call with the winemaker here in terms of when to cut off between light press and heavy press.
Now your wine is in barrel.
Yep.
And malolactic conversion or malolactic fermentation.
Yeah. So malolactic is basically a play on word for malic and lactic acid. It's basically the conversion of malic acid to lactic acid. And it happens with all red wines. Nobody really wants to bottle a Cabernet that is crisp, vibrant, refreshing, because that really belongs in a wine like a Sauvignon Blanc or a Chardonnay that's made in a Chablis style. When you want to make a red wine, particularly a hardy Cabernet from Napa, you got to let this sharp malic acid be converted to lactic acid. And for the most part, just like we inoculate our Cabernets with propagated yeast, we like to use a bacteria culture that actually goes through malolactic conversion fairly rapidly.
So now the wine's been pressed in the barrel. What kind of barrel do you go with for Cabernet Sauvignon?
So with Cabernet, you got to go into a new oak barrel to start with, and then get into our rotation program.
Okay.
Now, we have a very extensive winemaker minute that goes over all the different cooper choices, but just to quickly go over it, you do have a lot of choices here that are in the vessel type. But with Cabernet, if you really want to express some toastiness, some nutty components, then starting in a new oak barrel, and then down the road, whether it's 12 months or 14 months later, move it into a neutral barrel so that you can retain some of that fruit intensity as well. Then there's the last two things, Stuart, to talk about, and that's basically the finishing aspects of the wine, finding and filtration. Two things that really we don't need to even consider for another 18 months or so, or actually, no, 12 to 14 months or so. Because I usually look at finding in the second winter before we start to hit the home stretch for barrel aging. And when it comes to filtration, it's really if you want brilliance in the glass, whether you want to send your wine through a polished filter or not. We rack the wines every 4 months or so, and each racking does clarify the wine. So by the time you're bottling your Cabernet, you pretty much have a very clean wine, and filtration may not be necessary. Fining, on the other hand, helps polish the wine up. If you have bitterness, if you have tannins that didn't get polished up through extended maceration and firm up, doing a fining is going to actually help getting that wine a little bit more finished for bottling time.
Kian, I wanted to thank you for kind of going through the wine plan with us. If you have questions about your wine plan, don't hesitate to either call the winery or you can email winery@crushpadwine.com, and we'll get you in touch with your winemaker who can kind of explain this in greater detail. Also, cannot stress enough how we want you to come to the winery. We're going to put this wine plan in action, and we want to get your hands dirty so that when you open that bottle, you've got 100 stories to tell.